Happy Monday, everybody. It's time for another edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin here. And Mike, I always do this before every single episode, but please hit that subscribe button. It helps us out, makes our videos get seen on YouTube, and allows us to keep doing the show for you guys. So please like and subscribe, and even comment if you'd like to tell us something. You know, tell us your favorite part about your day. It doesn't have to even pertain to Arkansas athletics. It can be about whatever. Anyways, we're getting into Arkansas athletics now and your questions about them. We have a lot of basketball this week, so let's jump on in. I'm excited about this one. Our first question is from Hog Redneck, who asks, should I be worried about our basketball team? Counting the exhibition games, we're just 2-2. I know Baylor's a top 10 team, but they got hammered by Gonzaga.
Okay, a lot of what happened in that Baylor game, Cal had already addressed, but we're going to go back over this because he explained a lot of this before, and you confirmed this through your dad, who knows him pretty well, knows his system. First thing you need to understand about him is that in the summer, they don't scrimmage. They work totally on conditioning. Totally. Then when the fall semester starts, they don't scrimmage at the start of that either. They start working on individual things like defensive drills, drills to do certain things. So they work on drills. Then as they get closer to the start of the exhibition games, that's when they start scrimmaging. We had a lot of hurt guys this year, and they couldn't scrimmage.
Yeah.
And when they did scrimmage, he said, we tried to work on the things that we needed early the most. And he said, for instance, the zone defense that really hurt him against Baylor, he said, we didn't work on zone defense because the truth is most of the teams we're going to play early on don't play zone. So he said, I knew absolutely that Scott Drew might come out in a zone, but we just had to work on other things. So he said, we hadn't worked on that. The shooting, he typically does not work with strictly on shooting that much. Now, some of that is on them, and he said that. They need to shoot more. I mean, they've got three-point shooters that aren't hitting threes. They need to get in the, but he still seemed to indicate that doing that in a drill is one thing, or doing that, they need to do it in scrimmage situations. Well, now you're past that, so they're going to have to do it in games. And he said, our shooting always goes up as we get further into the season, so we'll see if that happens. There was a couple of things that were different in this game. Their defense, which they emphasized, wasn't as good. Now, why wasn't as good? Because Baylor was using these high ball screens to get straight to the basket, and they had some very athletic people inside, and their big 7'2" guys, Zvonimir Ivisic, had trouble with their quickness and their athleticism. That's the first time I'd seen him have problems. I asked somebody about that, and they said, well, this guy's been a lot better than he was a year ago, but he was injured mostly a year ago. He's one of these guys that if they actually had Jonas Adu, who would be their number one inside guy, if they had him available right now, then Ivisic would be kind of a guy that they bring along.
Yeah.
He said the one good thing about this is he's been forced to play more, but he's still not where he needs to be, and he will get better, and the situation will be even better when you get Adu actually in playing, because he wasn't 100%. Now, we don't know how long that's going to take. That is a real issue right now, in my opinion. So that was a problem. And then also, because they were running those high ball screens, when they go inside and Arkansas was stopping, they just kick it back outside. And the perimeter defense wasn't good enough, and they were bombing threes. Now, some of that is just how hot a team is. I guarantee you they didn't shoot that way against Gonzaga, but they did this night. Arkansas played much better in the second half, got it down tied a couple of times, including once with about 2.5 to go. It's just that every time they did that, it seemed like Baylor started either going inside and getting scoring baskets or dropping a couple of threes. So what's the bottom line here? Or he asked, should I be worried? That's up to you. I'm giving you what I know, but only you can decide as an individual fan whether you're worried about this. Razorback fans have seen so much stuff happen over the last few years. We've had 2 straight years of baseball in which they were highly ranked, did all right, looked good going into the end, and then just fell flat on their face at home in a home regional. So they're a little bit worried about that. Now let's look at football. I mean, I'm telling you, I felt like Sam Pittman did the things he needed in the offseason this team was going to be a lot better. Well, it's better, but it's not a lot better.
No, yeah.
And certain things have happened. I think the two Taylen Green injury things are an issue, although we think he's back this week. But there's just been some other things that have gone on that have maybe made this not exactly what we thought it would be. So you start thinking, oh, wait a minute here. And then basketball. You know, what did we all think last year going into basketball?
That's true, yeah.
Oh, this is Musselman, you know, they're going to be good. And then they win that.
They were ranked, they were ranked going into the season.
They won that exhibition game, beat the #1 team in the country, and you're like, oh boy, we're going. And then it just went, yeah. So I don't want to sit here and blow smoke and say, yeah, but this is Cal. He can't miss. I guess he could. We just don't know yet.
I think the other thing, too, to answer how I feel about this, should you be worried? I would say no. I've been around basketball my entire life, and I have seen a lot of weird things happen very early on in the season. You know, it's like, you could ask a Texas A&M fan right now, should you be worried that UCF beat you guys? A lot of them would say no, because it's basketball and things happen very early in the season. Cal told you this would happen. He was very upfront with the fact of the matter, which is our teams offensively, my teams offensively start a little slow. And that's because we're hitting defensive concepts in practice very hard. Mm-hmm. I also think you also have to understand that he told you, and his assistant coaches told you, that a lot of players have not been in practice because they've been out here and out here and out here with injuries. And so they weren't able to scrimmage, like you said. Even if they wanted to, Mike, they probably weren't able to. They weren't able to do situational basketball, which is so important early on. They weren't able to do some of those things. I think they would have been prepared for a zone defense if everybody was healthy in practice and they were able to do situational basketball against the zone. Yeah. I just think you have to understand where he's coming from, where he still said, I think this team is really good. We have to figure some things out. And nobody is disagreeing with that. They have some things to figure out. Offensively, yeah, they do. But I really just believe that right now, should you be worried? I wouldn't be. Now, if we're still talking about the same things going into SEC play, yeah, you should be worried. You should be worried. But right now, I think you got to breathe a little bit.
Got a game Wednesday night.
Against Troy, yeah, exactly. So we'll see what happens. I'd like to see them improve throughout this non-conference schedule. And let's be honest about this. This non-conference schedule isn't a cakewalk.
No,
it isn't.
Some of the games, in fact, there's nobody that's bad.
No.
I mean, Troy is 2-0.
Right. And the other thing about all of these teams in college basketball, you may go, well, they're not in the SEC. That don't mean they're bad. That don't mean they're bad, guys.
Lipscomb's pretty good.
Yeah, yes. And now, are we saying that Arkansas shouldn't beat these teams? No, they should. But don't be surprised if they get tested early on by these teams. I mean, I went on the radio the other day and I said, I think Little Rock would be a good test for them. And people were like, Courtney, are you saying they might lose to Little Rock? They could. But I think all of these teams in this non-conference slate are going to be great tests for them. That's why Cal built the schedule like he did. And I think he did a great job at that. KY Hogs says, I was watching the big guy from Tennessee last year. He's really good. He's talking about Jonas Adu. How long until he's full speed? The Hogs really need him. Right now I'm surrounded by Big Blue Nation fans who are driving me crazy.
You know, no timetable has been given on Adu. I don't even think the injury has really been explained. We don't know exactly.
They haven't given any details on it, no.
Cal just says he's being very careful with him. He said the other night after the Baylor game, he's still not 100%. You could see that. He's just not moving quickly enough. You can also see how good he's probably going to be when we see him full speed. I mean, you can watch that last year. As far as the Kentucky fans, I feel your pain. The only advice I can give KY Hog, because I actually have conversed with him via, not on the phone, but he does have, the reason he texts me is he has my phone number, and I don't give that to very many people.
Wow.
But I decided he wouldn't abuse that. And so I know for a fact that he's retired.
Yeah.
So the advice I would give to you, move to Arkansas. There aren't very many Kentucky fans around here.
There are not. That's why it's so great here. No, I completely feel his pain right now, because if they're as bad as they are in person as they are on social media, then my condolences to KY Hog fan because, man, or KY Hog, because, oh, man, that is tough. But with Jonas Adu, I mean, hopefully we'll get a better idea of where he is maybe going throughout this week. I know that they've been updating us and taking it very slow with him. I think that's a smart thing to do. But, I mean, he wasn't 100% when he played the other night. I mean, that he just wasn't. And then you could also say the same thing about some of the other guys. I think John L. Davis is still coming back from injury. A lot of people are going, wow, he's dropped off in his shooting from FAU. Yeah, because he's coming back from injury, y'all. He's coming back from injury. So I think you're going to see an uptick in his performance as well when he's 100% too. That's just my opinion. H.L. McCamish says, our 7-footer looked really good until the Baylor game. What happened? Just a bad game, and he's talking about Big Z or Zvonimir Visic there. So,
again, I think I kind of explained that in an earlier answer, but he was slated to kind of be their number 2 guy there. He's going to play, but I think Adu was going to play more. And then when the injury came along, it just changed everything. I thought he had played very well up until that game. Again, I think as he gets more experience, because I don't think this guy is slow.
No.
I think he just hasn't played a lot. And Baylor, again, had some really good forwards, very athletic. That one guy was amazing. They said he was a high jumper and all this crazy stuff. So that may have been part of it. But if you notice, he also didn't have a shooting touch around the basket in this game, and he's been very good at that.
Yeah.
So everybody has an off game, and I just think maybe we saw him in an off game.
And I also want to make the point that talking about this roster at the beginning of the season with some basketball coaches, and also, you guys know, my dad as well, and I was talking about Big Z, and I was like, man, he could be a really good player for them. And he said, yeah, I think where I see some of the things that you talked about, he needs development still. And that's why they brought in Jonas Adu. They brought him in to complement Big Z and play him when they needed to, play him maybe to give Jonas a rest a little bit and things like that, and know he can add to the team. I just really do believe he needs a bit more development. And so with Jonas's injury early on this season, that kind of threw them, okay, well, now you're going to get a whole lot more playing time, Big Z, and you're going to have to step up a lot because you're going to have to deal with this early on.
And the one other thing we need to talk about on this subject is Trevin Brazile, Cal had said, we don't want that guy that drifts around behind the three-point line and shoots three-pointers and occasionally crashes to the rim and gets a slam dunk or a rebound dunk. We don't want that guy anymore. Yeah. You're going to have to get out there and battle defensively. You're going to have to score around, and he hasn't done that real well so far. Yeah. So he needs to improve in his new role.
Absolutely. And I think you're going to see those things as they move throughout this non-conference play. That's what the hope is, right? Because we could be having a whole different conversation coming into January if it's not. But Armand Abbey says in that Baylor game, the Razorbacks got within 3 points with 2.5 left. Like you said, Mike, Baylor that made a layup, and I noticed, and neither of Arkansas's big men were in the game to defend around the basket at that point. Was there a reason for that?
You know, you and I have talked about that. I mean, Cal wasn't asked about that after the game, but the common logic would be whatever was happening on the floor at that time with the people that Baylor had on the floor, he probably felt like they had a better matchup without either of those guys in the game. Maybe it was just that Adu was tired and he didn't want to play him anymore, and maybe he just felt like Visic just should be resting. I don't know. It did cause an issue on that one basket because there was I don't remember who it was that was trying to defend the basket, but Baylor got a guy in there and it was a total mismatch, and he made an easy layup, and then Arkansas was back down by 5, and then I think it went up to 7 and got back to 4 or 5 at the end. But again, that's my only thought on that. I don't think it was necessarily that Cal was just going, duh, I'm dumb. I don't understand that if I don't have one of my centers in the game, they might score on the inside. I don't think it was that.
He did mention after the Lipscomb game about conditioning as well. And so do you think maybe, I mean, could have been maybe a little bit these guys needed a rest?
Sure.
I don't know. I mean, they didn't pan over. I wasn't at the game, so full disclosure, but they didn't pan over to the bench to show those guys. So I don't know if they needed a break or not. So, but that could have been another thing too, because he did mention conditioning.
But it's going to bring them, this whole thing with these Kentucky fans have been saying this guy can recruit, but he can't coach. There'll probably be some Razorback fans that start thinking they're right.
There are some Razorback fans in my DMs going, Are Kentucky fans, were the warnings correct? And I'm going, breathe, everybody. Breathe, okay? If I'm your voice of reason here, just take a deep breath, okay? Everything is going to be just all right. Save those bad thoughts if we're still talking about these situations going into SEC play, okay? Marty Bird's proxy wants to know, do you think Cal may have been a little disappointed in the attendance for the opener? I think we need to get to a point where an off attendance night is 14 to 15,000. Giving your basketball tickets to someone who wants to go, given the current state of the program, takes very little effort.
Yeah, there was a pretty much of a controversy over this last week.
There was, yeah.
And it was both sides. On the one hand, you had several, and all I did was I started it because I posted a picture when the game started, and I said, I'm a little bit surprised by this, not sure what's going on.
We were all surprised. We were talking about it on the media row.
Because it was, I don't know if they listed an attendance, it looked like 7,000 or 8,000 to me. It looked like more than half empty.
Yeah.
So I was a little surprised by that, but I didn't comment on it, I just put the picture up, and then people started going back and forth on it. And so what you had was some fans saying, we've got a Hall of Fame coach in here. What is wrong with you people? We've got to support him. And then you had other people saying, not any different than any other time this time of year. We never show up big on Wednesday in November. And then there were the people that said, hey, it was after the election. There's so many liberals in Northwest Arkansas that they were mad and stayed at home, or they were mad about the election. And other people said, no, you just stayed up late and you were tired. And then I even had somebody tell me there were a couple of accidents on the interstate.
Yes, on I-49, right?
Yeah,
yes.
That might have blocked some people off. I don't think it kept 5,000 people out of the arena, but it might have affected the crowd somewhat. The one thing that I thought was really weird was Arkansas had like a double-digit lead, and then all of a sudden, with about 3.5 to go, they got it down to 6, Lipscomb. And I saw people taking off, going for the exit.
I saw the same thing.
I'm thinking, wait a minute here. You may need them at the end of this game.
Yeah, I went, what is happening? Don't leave, no.
But they did anyway, and so the small crowd got a lot smaller. Now, thankfully, that didn't affect the team because they got smart, because they were about to do the same thing that they did in the TCU game, which was shoot too early in the shot clock, miss shots, and blow the lead. And they almost did that. But when it got down to 6, they started going inside to Avicic.
Yeah.
And he was good, man. He made a lot of these little turnaround layups, maybe had a dunk or so. But he really bailed them out. And so they didn't need the crowd, and the crowd did get excited. They were louder there with all those people gone than they were earlier. But again, let's keep an eye on this. We got a game Wednesday night this week. It's against Troy, 2-0 team. Somebody said, well, it's just these no-name teams. Well, you got to be smarter than that as a fan. Lipscomb wasn't a no-name team. We had given it the media had given tons of advance publicity on that game, talking about what they did last year, how they almost beat Arkansas last year. And they were a better team this year because they'd added this one guy that was like a 6'7" power forward that was a three-point shooter and all this stuff. And so I think we did a good job of letting people know that Arkansas could lose this game.
Yeah.
So what about this one? Well, Troy's 2-0. Both the teams they beat are not named teams.
Yeah, they're not.
But we'll see. We'll see if more people show up. We know there's no election this week.
Yeah, and I just think of all the excuses. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, everyone, at least when you look at social media and all the talking that we did before basketball season, how everyone said, I had so many people message me that said, football season's turning out to be terrible, and I can't wait for basketball season. I thought that first season opener game was going to be exciting, huge crowd. I mean, even my dad texted me, and he went, wow, I can't believe that the crowd looked like that. I will say this, too. I will say this. It doesn't help that I think, didn't Musselman make a comment about, Arkansas talks about the fans at the games, and because they was talking about the USC
3,000 people at that game.
Right, but he said, there was only what did he say? There was only 6,000 or 7,000.
Something like that.
And I kind of said no, I felt like there was a lot of people at those games.
There was more than this.
There was more than that, exactly. So I don't know.
The other thing I would point out, and I like pointing this out.
Okay.
Because internet people like this that are that are the ones that are defending what happened, saying, "Hey, what are you talking about?" They got mad and bowed up and said, "What are you bringing this up for? Blah blah blah. You're blaming this on us." I didn't blame anybody. I just posted the picture. Then from there, other fans went back and forth. But isn't it interesting that the very people that take shots at the media and talk about how we're too sensitive, and I don't think I'm sensitive at all. I almost never respond to a negative. I've had people accuse me of all kinds of, you're carrying Sam Pittman's water, you're scared of the athletic department, you work for the, I don't ever respond to that stuff. I don't care if you say that. It doesn't make any difference to me because I know it's not true. But when you turn it around and the focus is on them, they don't like it.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about every fan, but I'm talking about a lot of these people that complain don't like it when the focus gets shifted on them. Where were you? Yeah. And I also believe this. I believe that most of the people that were posting in that back and forth, they don't even go to games.
That's what I wonder. Is like
I don't even think these people are at games, because that's the typical guy on the internet, and some women. A lot of them don't go to games.
Yeah, there's a lot of people very loud about the program and some of them, to be fair, I know maybe can't go to the games, live out of state, and it would be a lot to go to the games. Oh, Alyssa has a paper for us. Alyssa has a paper for us.
So, nope, this is the first 4 games under Eric Musselman attendance, and that's what they listed attendance at against Lips.
Okay, so we have, thank you, Alyssa Orange. Alyssa Orange, everyone. Claps for Alyssa. Yeah. Okay. So these were were these season openers under Musselman?
No, first 4 games.
First 4 games under the Musselman era. Of 2019-2020 of the Musselman era. The first game, 17,274. That's what it was. That's what they said it was.
That's what they said
That's what they said it was. Listen, if you were there, I'm sure you have opinions.
That's probably sold tickets. That's my guess.
Exactly. 12,001 for that second game. 13,058 for that third game, and 11,182 for that fourth game. All of the 1920 season, the opening of the first year that Eric Musselman was at Arkansas. You want to know, this is crazy to me. Alyssa gave me this number, and I'm laughing at it. Mike, you want to guess what they listed the attendance as for that Lipscomb game?
Yes, again, I think it's tickets sold, but it's 19,000.
19,200. There is no way.
Well, it's full. That's capacity.
There's no way.
I'm telling you, that's just they sold out. So it's never been the case. They never give accurate numbers.
But then, if you've sold out the game, I understand. Who asked the question? Was it Marty Bird's proxy?
That means that a lot of those people didn't show up.
Right. So Marty Bird's proxy, right, who wants to know, right? He said, giving your basketball tickets to someone who wants to go,
that's the point.
Given the current state of the program, takes very little effort, and I agree with that.
And so they're going to try to do that this week.
I hope so. I really genuinely hope so.
They're already sending out stuff saying, if you can't go, they've got some arrangement. We don't have that with us, but
they've got a ticket.
There's some kind of way they can get this back to students or other people that will go to the game.
Well, I hope so. And listen, we'll come back next week because we'll have a better idea of how many people show up to that Troy game. Mountsdown asks, were you surprised that Auburn was able to win handedly against Houston? Watching the Arkansas game, Jimmy Dykes raved about how impressed he was with Houston. Also, Auburn appeared to have some issues going into that game.
Well, the issues he was talking about was 2 players on the team plane flying out to Houston got into a fight.
They had to stop they had to land the plane, right?
And the pilot, who wasn't about to put up with this nonsense, said, okay, we're coming back.
He's like that, he's like a mom, when you and 2 siblings are fighting in the car.
I'll just go home.
Turn the car around.
He did turn the plane around. They flew back to Auburn, dumped those 2 guys out, and then turned around and went back without them. So normally you'd think that would be disruptive.
Right.
Because it's like an incident.
Yeah.
Not with Bruce Pearl, because that's the way he does everything. It's just chaotic. It's just in your face. So his guys probably thought, no big deal, we're going to win this game, and they did. I don't know. Houston generally is a really good team. Maybe they're not as good this year, or it could be what we talked about. Sometimes things just happen.
Sometimes things just happen. I mean, is Texas A&M not a good ball club because they lost to UCF?
Yeah, I don't. A&M's no good.
Do you think Baylor's not a good ball club because they got blown out by Gonzaga?
No, I just don't think A&M is good. I'll just say
Okay, that's fine. You can believe that. But, I mean, let's go back to last week when we talked about Kevin's power rankings. And one of the things I agreed with him on was he put Alabama first and Auburn second. I believe that was his power rankings, and I agree with that.
Okay.
I think Auburn's a really good team
So
this
they're
year.
good.
So
they can just get in a fight and leave guys at home and still win.
and still win, yeah. So that if that tells you something about Auburn coming up, you know.
Tells you about Bruce Pearl.
It does.
He goes around sweating all the time and then being angry about everything.
And taking off his shirt and things like that. Anyways, to football, where Razor Alex 88 says, I don't feel as bad about the Ole Miss loss, seeing how they harassed Georgia. We have another top 5 team coming to the Hill. I have a feeling the team will be ready. Razorback Nation definitely got to bring it.
Yeah, I'm glad that he feels that way. I've got mixed feelings about this game. Here's the part that you need to understand, and Sam Pittman said it in his Monday press conference. In no way, in any way you want to look at it, in no way does that 2021 Texas team that Arkansas beat here compare to the Texas team now. The big issue they had back in 2021 is they had a quarterback that couldn't play, couldn't make plays. They have 2 now. They don't just have 1, they have 2.
Maybe even a third one.
So Arkansas is not going to win this game because Texas doesn't have enough talent. Texas has the talent. You're going to have to try and play off the rivalry thing, I think, a little bit. So how does that help? Well, it will help the fans because it has always been a rivalry to the fans. Some people younger people started trying to claim in 2021 as we approached that game, oh, that old Southwest Conference thing, that's over. What's the matter with you?
Who said that?
Oh, there were fans saying it.
What?
Yeah, they were saying that's over. It was younger fans that never dealt with it, and they were saying this is not that big a deal. Well, what happened was the crowd went bonkers. It was jammed full, and then when they won, they jumped the field and go.
If you look at the video, because we have video from that when they stormed the field, and we were on the field after that. Most of the video I see from that storming the field is young people doing horns down, talking.
There were just people that misunderstood, misjudged it, people that were clueless.
That's crazy.
So it is a rivalry. It's the biggest one. I'm just telling you. Now that Texas is in the SEC, and Arkansas won't play them but twice every 4 years, so it's not a yearly thing, at least the way it's structured right now. So you're not going to play them every year. But when they play them, it'll be their biggest game, biggest rivalry it's just the way it's always been. Now, what does that mean for now? I think Sam Pittman said it today. You got to get the players to understand this because they don't know. A lot of those kids are not from around here, even some that are probably don't see it. So what he did last week in the off week is he got out every big game that went going all the way back to 1964, the national championship, and he showed them video.
Wow.
And showed them all these games, including that when Sam was the offensive line coach and they played him in the Texas Bowl and Arkansas just destroyed him. He talked about when we got there, he said, I felt it. He said it was just like a championship atmosphere. It's just going to be different. So he's got to do that. Minimum. He's got to make his players understand how big it is to the fans. And then once they get on the field, if they do the right thing, they will feel it from the fans. But again, you're going to have to do more than just have the fans on your side. You're going to have to do more than just be fired up because you're playing a team that is every bit as good as the Ole Miss team. It's a different kind of team offensively, but they're every bit as good as the team that just trashed you. So you're going to have to play better. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, that is the bottom line. I will say this, though. It's funny that we talk about the young people of the, and I was kind of intrigued to know if the younger generation, kids on campus and things like that, little kids knew about the rivalry. But I tell you how I know that these kids are getting good education from older Razorback fans, right, who lived through it and everything. There was a kid that I was in Omaha, and I think it was an off day, and I wore something, I think I was like white, and it was like a bit of burnt orange, and I wore that, and he went up to me, and he was like, horns down, and he was a Razorback fan, and I was going, oh, Oh goodness, you misinterpret me. I cover the Hogs. You know, he was like, oh okay, but he was a little kid.
Yeah.
So you know, I think there is that semblance in the family.
When I got here in '75, and I didn't know much about Arkansas, one of the first things I discovered in that '75 season, two things really. I discovered Arkansas fans don't like A&M and they don't like Texas. And I remember just calling some of my friends back in Texas and just telling them, man, you guys ought to be here. This is like being home again. These people hate the two teams I hate the most. And that's not changed.
Yeah, I mean, it is really, really cool to see the rivalry renewed and to hear the players even talk about it, because we asked them at media days, and to talk about that rivalry and to talk about, you know, what it means. And so they had some education on it. I do believe that. So I'm glad that Sam was showing them past games in the rivalry as well. WV Hog fan asks, what changes in our defensive scheme will we need to make in order to keep Texas from throwing for 600 yards against us? That's a great question.
Okay, he's laying it off on the scheme last week, and in our discussion we had, I said, might have been some issues there. Sam Pittman indicated maybe they were reading our signals or something, whatever we were doing. But I said, and that they didn't play. The secondary did not play. They just quit. And Sam Pittman pretty much confirmed that on Monday by saying he was extremely disappointed with their effort. Yep. He said, I did and am continuing to do this week and last week what I should have done last year when the secondary started going south toward the end of the season. He said, I put every one of those positions but one up for grabs. Now, there's a lot of debate of who that one person that's safe out of the four, but three of those positions are up for grabs. That's what he said. And he said there's no better way to get maximum effort out of players than to let them know you got a chance to play now if you push this guy in front of you. Now, the other thing that's interesting is Jalen Braxton. We've been talking about him all year. No, he's not available this week. No, he's not available this week. That's because going into the season, he was their most highly touted guy in the secondary. He was a preseason second-team All-SEC as a sophomore. As a freshman, he was on the All-SEC freshman team, and he's good.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if he can play this week, and he's supposedly worked out Monday, that could help. But you got to wonder about a guy that's been out this long and has to come back and play in a game like this. So I don't know. But all of those things could be good news. And then Pittman ended up saying also, we have done some things to make sure to disguise our secondary coverage a little better. Yeah. So there's all of that stuff rolled into one.
I'd be curious to know he didn't mention whose position or who was safe back.
No, just said three of the four.
Okay. You think who, maybe TJ Metcalf? Maybe.
Well, I was thinking Metcalf might be the one because he's their best guy generally, but he hasn't played well in 2 weeks.
Yeah, so that'd be interesting. I'd be interested to know who is safe there. And then I believe, just for a side note, that Taylen Green's okay, Jaquindon Jackson.
That's the other thing that came out of the press conference. Taylen Green, he said he's fine.
Okay.
Was okay last week. So this apparently was not as serious an injury as the early one. He's not sure about Jaquindon Jackson. He's supposed to work out again on Monday, but they don't know. Okay. They'll know later in the week.
Well, it'd be nice to have him back and healthy for this game as well.
Exactly.
Porklink wants to know, how do they decide which players get playing time? Obviously, Sam has the final say, but, who has the most influence?
I don't know that anybody's ever asked him that question directly, so I'm just going to speculate. And there are some things to back this up. Sam has always been the kind of guy, if you watched him, that lets his coordinators do their jobs. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that if a coordinator decides this guy's going to play, that guy's not, he's not going to go, no. Now, he might have questioned it, but I think he's going to go with his coordinators on who should play and who shouldn't. There's also some pretty good evidence that even the position coaches have a big say, because in this controversy that came up about the two tight ends who end up being dismissed from the team, what we heard was that one of the arguments they made was that their position coach was not giving them a fair shake, and he was deciding that they didn't play much. And they disagreed with that, and they went to Pittman, and what did he do? He certainly backed his position coach up.
Yeah.
and I would expect him to, but what that tells me is the position coach does have a say in who plays and who doesn't.
Well, why?
Because they were saying he's the reason why we're not playing more.
But my question is, why wouldn't they? Because they're the ones who are around those guys constantly.
Exactly.
So,
I think this is common logic.
Yeah,
the head
right.
coach relies on his coordinators. The coordinators rely on their position coaches.
Exactly. That'll do, Pig says. There is a mathematical possibility that there will be 7 teams tied for first place in the SEC race. Is it still 1 versus 2, one of the 3-way tie for seconds, or do they pick the top 2 of the ones? Could you please clarify?
Okay, we don't really understand the wording of that.
Yeah, I'm trying to read it again. Is it still 1 versus 2? Yeah, I'm confused a little bit. Does that'll do pick? I'm assuming they know there's no divisions anymore, right?
Maybe or maybe not. I don't know. But
Okay.
even if we don't understand what he's saying there, we do understand the formula.
Yes.
I didn't have time to put up a graphic, so you're going to have to follow us on this.
Okay.
Okay, step 1, head-to-head competition. This would be if there was a 3-way tie. You've got 3 teams, and one of them is already in. So you're trying to decide between the other 2.
Yeah.
Okay, easiest tiebreaker, did Team A beat Team B?
Right.
If they played each other and one beat the other, that other team is out. So that's the easiest one.
Okay.
Step 2, record versus all common conference opponents. So on that, however many people are tied, you just go look and see, okay, what did you do against the common opponents? What did these guys do?
Yeah,
And you use that to maybe eliminate some people. Okay. Step 3, record against the highest placed common conference opponent in the conference standings and proceeding through the conference standings among tied teams. So now you're looking at the teams you played and how you played against teams in terms of how they ranked in the final standings.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Step 4, cumulative conference winning percentages of all conference opponents among the tied teams. So now you're getting into really more numbers.
Oh my
Okay,
goodness.
5, total scoring margin versus all conference opponents among tied teams. So that's scoring margins.
Yeah, okay.
And I like the last one.
Me too. This is my favorite one.
Because this is like what we did in the neighborhood when we were deciding odd man out. Random draw. That's good.
If none of those work, if none of those can decide it,
The
random
old random draw works every time.
It works every
what
time.
What do you mean? The short straw,
Can you imagine if they had a situation where none of all of those steps, five other tiebreakers, produce the same
You still had
teams.
multiple teams there. Yeah, that would be simple. But then you can do it with your random draw.
Your random
draw. Just
draw.
like spinning the dial, right?
I would like to, if that ever happened, that would be the wildest thing. It would be the wildest thing. I just think about that.
It's like a coin flip, too. It's like
I bet it would be. Would you put those teams' name in a hat and just pull them out?
Draw them out.
Wow, that'd be crazy. Me rooting for chaos, I'd love to see that. Whippersnapper wants to know, should the SEC fine Ole Miss more for storming the field early before time expired?
Okay, real simple answer on this.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
There you go. That's it. Yes, they should.
The one thing worse than storming the field is storming the field before the game is over. So yes, fine them $50,000 more. I don't know, double it.
Double it. Why not?
It's Ole Miss. What do we care? Triple it.
Mike, I knew you were going to say yes.
Take some of their NIL money away from them.
There you go. Parallax Pig asks, do you know if this court settlement to pay players will be distributed to the sports that generate the revenue, evenly distributed among all sports, or something in between? If football doesn't get lion's share of the revenue, I see trouble.
Okay, you're going to get debate on this.
There's been debate on this.
Well, I know you say that, and then we were told by some people at the U of A who know what's going on that it's not exactly what they think, what some people think it is.
Okay.
But a lot of fans believe that they're going to get sued. And I told you last week, they expect to be sued. But these people that are working this thing out behind the scenes, they're not a bunch of people that got in a room and said, hey, we're going to do this regardless of what they like it or not. They have talked to lawyers, they've talked to judges, they have contacts that know people on the Supreme Court.
Well, but it's not about getting sued for, it's not about getting sued for that, Mike, I think you're misinterpreting me here.
No,
yes, you are, because here's the thing, they're going to get sued for Title IX.
Yes.
Title IX, once they do this.
And what I'm telling you is they've been told that as a part of this whole thing they've been doing for the last 6-8 months, what did the first thing they did? They earmark $2 or $3 billion that go to past players
yes, yeah.
all the way back to 2016.
Right.
When they did that, all of a sudden the court people started going, well, that's going a long way to making this better, what you screwed up and did. You're making it better. So they've come up with this plan, and what I'm told is that they've been very honest with the legal people that they've talked to, and judges, and maybe even people that know how the Supreme Court feels about it. Don't forget, the Supreme Court is different than it was five or six years ago when this.
Yeah.
That what the attitude now is, you've done a lot to eliminate this problem where athletes who are generating money for the university aren't getting their fair share. So one of the things we're told is, yes, if you're a revenue generating sport, you're going to get more of the money. That doesn't mean they're going to leave everybody else out, but if you're making payments in addition to the scholarship, keep in mind everybody has a scholarship.
Yeah.
And we also have cost of attendance thing that's still in place where they get certain benefits. They get about $1,000 a month in addition just to spend on whatever they want. So they're going to get more money, but maybe they don't get as much in like women's softball as they would for football because it doesn't generate the revenue.
Right.
And they've been told that's okay.
Okay.
We understand that the money, the people that are generating the money have a right to get more of the money. It's like any business.
Right.
In any business, if you're somebody that what you do actually generates a lot of profit for your business, they're going to pay you more.
True,
right?
true, absolutely.
So they're looking at it like that. They're not doing the Title IX, oh, this isn't fair. Why? Because you're still taking care of those people. It's not like somebody in a women's sport or somebody in a men's Olympic sport. It's not like they're not getting anything. They're getting a college education worth about $50,000 a year. They're getting extra money, and they're going to get more money. So they'll all be better off. But the ones that are going to benefit, but the great thing about this is the cap. There's a cap on it, which means that Ole Miss, with all their NIL collective and all that, or A&M with all their booster money, they can't pay more than you do if you can reach your cap.
Right.
That's why Arkansas is working hard right now to generate as much money as it can for athletic department revenue so they will be at the cap. Now, there's another controversy over the NIL because we talked last week. We have been told that the NIL will have to undergo a fair market value concept.
Right.
A fair market value concept. So, for instance, if you give somebody $2 million, they will come in and look, okay, what does this player have to do to earn this $2 million? Well, he has to do this endorsement here, has to talk to these little kids group, has to talk in front of a civic group. They will look at that and go, it's not worth $2 million. We've determined it's worth about $300,000. I've been told it's going to be a lot less than what these, Texas, for instance, it gives, what's his name, Arch Manning, $2 million. He might, if Arch Manning came along today, he might, under this system, he might get $300,000 or something. Right. So that's going to be reduced. Now, are they going to get sued? Absolutely.
Yeah, because
absolutely.
I think there's problems with the fair market value. People, that's so subjective.
No, but maybe.
It is very subjective.
Here's the concept, though. In the NFL, NBA, whatever, athletes have a salary cap, but they are allowed to go on out on their own and
make their own deals. Yeah.
Okay, but here's the problem.
Yeah.
They do it based on their real value of what they're doing. If I'm somebody that plays for a team and there's a local restaurant chain and so that restaurant chain, they may like him because he's a football player, but they're not boosting money to the NFL team. They're just going, okay, if we pay you this much, will we get this much plus this?
Well, they're deciding based on what they feel like that athlete is worth to them and working with their agent to make that deal, right? So let's be honest, right? If you're going into anything, it's like actors as well. It's anything in the entertainment business. There are actors that get paid a whole lot of money to do movies that I don't think they're worth that for. Then I look at how much they get paid for that movie and I go, are you insane? Why would you pay that person that much money? I don't think that's their fair market value. I think an agent has gone in there and said, this is my client and this is how much they're worth.
What they're doing is they're paying them to play football, and that's what an NIL is.
Right, but here's the thing. If you have a good NIL agent, right, let's say Arch Manning probably has a great one.
There aren't a handful of athletes that are worth. the gymnast at LSU, she is worth her NIL
Why?
money.
Why is she worth
Because
her NIL?
she's known everywhere and because she can.
Right, because of her. But how good is she as an LSU gymnast?
No, it has nothing to do with how good she is. It has to do with her ability to generate revenue by endorsing products.
Sure, and that's exactly why somebody might think it's worth $5 million to pay for her to endorse their product. It's why somebody might feel like it's worth $6 million. It is subjective at the end of the day. It is subjective, and that's where I'm going. This is where a lawyer's going to have a field day with this.
I've been told that they, behind the scenes, have been told this will work. So
Okay.
we'll see if it works.
Yeah, we'll absolutely see. I expect lawsuits. And with the Title IX stuff to go, because let's get back to the question here. Each school can decide how much they want to distribute.
Here's the bottom line on what all of these people are doing under the covers, or they're doing it on their own, behind the scenes, with these lawyers and judges and all these people. You know what they're doing? They're basically saying, hey, people, you slapped us on the hand, you woke us up, athletes are better off now. But if you keep this up, you're going to ruin us.
Yes,
We're not going to exist anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I had somebody argue, no, that's not true, because if you look at the effect of NIL, it's actually raised everybody up. So there is that argument.
Yeah.
But I know what the colleges are saying and what the coaches are saying. They don't want to recruit players who are just there for money.
No, nobody does. Nobody does. I mean, the coaches, I genuinely agree with you there, Mike. I do.
If you equalize this stuff, you won't be doing that.
Exactly, but I think that's why we go back to my argument, which is I think you do need to get an athlete's, like a CBA agreement, a collective bargaining agreement between the athletes.
That's the next step if they get sued.
And I think you do that, and then you stop the lawsuits because you've signed.
I've been told they're not going to do it that way.
Okay, all right.
They think they'll win, and then if they have to, then they'll go to the they'll go to the players' union and the collective bargaining agreement, which will eliminate the lawsuit.
Okay, I will be eagerly awaiting to see what happens with that situation. Pig's Feet asks, do you follow Hogs who make it to the pros? Do you have any favorites?
I generally don't watch pro sports because I'm so preoccupied in my job with covering Arkansas. And look, I've said before, on Saturday I watch all kinds of football games.
You do, yeah.
Because and mainly SEC teams, because I want to know how good everybody is. So when you do that, you reach a point where you're saturated on sports. I want to get away from it. That's why I go to the golf course and just go, hey, the heck with all that. I'm out here, I'm having a good time. I do other things, do projects around the house that I enjoy. So I don't watch that a lot. Now, if there's a player that I liked, an athlete that I liked, who is on an NFL, NBA, whatever team, a pros team, and if they're doing well, then I will watch a game just to see how they do. I remember when D-Mac was playing for Oakland, the Raiders, and I watched him all the time just to see what he would do. Then later on, when Matt Jones played for Jacksonville, I watched his games because I wanted to see how he would do. More recently, it was Taylen Burks, because everybody liked Taylen. I happened to believe that he played for a team that didn't understand what his value was, and I think their offense wasn't built in a way to use him.
Yeah, he needs to stay healthy too.
And he's hurt, so he's not even he's on injured reserve right now. I wish they'd trade him.
Yeah.
And if they traded him to another team and he got to start all over again, I think he'd be good. Trade him to the Cowboys. I mean, he'd love to play for the Cowboys. Jerry Jones is too dumb to do that, though. And then Jalen Williams. If he played more, I generally don't watch the NBA, but if I knew he was going to play, I'd watch one of their games on TV just to see how he did.
Okay.
But not generally, I don't do that.
My favorite pro hog right now that I've been following a lot is Jake Bates, the kicker.
Okay.
Because he has a great story, and I've just loved seeing him have so much success with the Lions. He kicked that game winner for them the other day, and I just love when he gets in the press conference, and I had no idea that he wasn't even playing football, a few years back, and he was working for like a bricklaying company. And he just, that's so, what a great story about a guy that really you didn't hear much about at Arkansas because he was behind who? Cam Little. And then, tries to get a career back again. and eventually makes it to the NFL. And I don't know, I just love that story.
Sure.
I mean, playing for the Michigan Panthers, and now he's playing for the Detroit Lions and kicking game winners. So
Good.
I think it's an awesome story. So he's my favorite right now. But that's going to do it for this week's Ask Mike. Thank you so much for your questions, and we'll see you next Monday to answer some more of them.